Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the UHS Defender, watching the endless stars through the main viewport. The patrol ship drifted at the edge of human space, far from Earth but close enough to the outer colonies to matter. Jake had been doing this job for 5 years now, and most days were quiet. Today felt different. Navigator Lisa Stone looked up from her console with a frown. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange on long-range sensors," she said. Her fingers moved across the control panel, bringing up data streams that made Jake lean forward in his chair. "What kind of strange?" Jake asked. He trusted Lisa's instincts. She had been navigating space lanes longer than most people had been. "Alive. 12 contacts, moving in formation from the Kepler sector." "They're big, sir. Much bigger than anything we have out there," Lisa replied. Her voice carried the kind of concern that made experienced spacers pay attention. Weapons Officer Rick Hayes turned from his station. "Captain, those aren't human ships. The energy signatures don't match anything in our database." Rick was a former military man who knew his business. If he said something wasn't human, Jake believed him. Communications specialist Amy Carter adjusted her headset and looked worried. "Sir, I'm trying to hail them on all standard frequencies. No response. So far." Amy was young but sharp, and she knew how to make contact with anyone who wanted to talk. Jake stood up and walked to the main display. The 12 contacts showed as red dots moving steadily toward human space. Their formation was tight and professional, like a military fleet with a purpose. Jake had seen enough war games to recognize an invasion force when he saw one. "How long before they reach the outer colonies?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her calculations. "At their current speed, about 18 hours, sir." Jake nodded. 18 hours was not much time, but it might be enough. "Amy, keep trying to contact them. Use every frequency we have. Rick, run a full scan on those ships. I want to know everything. Our sensors can tell us." "Already on it, Captain," Rick said. His fingers flew over the weapons console, pulling data from every scanner the Defender carried. "Sir, these ships are using some kind of crystal-based hull design. I've never seen anything like it. Energy readings suggest they have weapon systems that make ours look like toys." Amy suddenly straightened in her chair. "Captain, I'm getting a response. They're hailing us." "Put it on screen," Jake ordered. The main display flickered and showed the image of an alien creature unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The being had 4 arms, skin that looked like polished metal, and eyes that glowed with a cold blue light. When it spoke, its voice was translated by the ship's computer into perfect English. "I am Commander Zexthul of the Vorthak Empire. You will identify yourself and explain why you dare to challenge our passage." Jake stepped forward, keeping his expression calm. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Human Systems Patrol Vessel Defender. You are approaching human space without permission. Please state your intentions." The alien creature made a sound that might have been laughter. "Human space? You primitive creatures have no space. You have worlds that will soon belong to the Vorthak Empire. Your species will serve us, or your species will die." Rick's hand moved toward his weapons controls, but Jake held up a finger to stop him. Starting a fight with 12 alien warships was not a smart move for one patrol vessel. "Commander Zexthul, I must inform you that human space is protected by the Solar Defense Treaty. Any unauthorized entry will be met with appropriate response," Jake said, using his most diplomatic tone. "Your treaties mean nothing to the Vorthak," Zexthul replied. "We have conquered 17 star systems. Your worlds will be number 18 through 24. You have 24 of your hours to evacuate all military installations and prepare for our arrival. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your colonies." The transmission ended, leaving Jake and his crew staring at a blank screen. The bridge was quiet for several seconds as everyone processed what they had just heard. "Well, that could have gone better," Amy said, trying to lighten the mood. Lisa turned from her station. "Captain, what do? We can't fight 12 ships that size." Jake walked back to his command chair, his mind already working on the problem. The aliens thought they were dealing with a primitive species. They had no idea what humans were capable of when someone threatened their homes. Amy, send an emergency transmission to Earth Command. Use the Deep Space Relay Network and make sure it's encrypted with the highest security codes we have. Tell them we have hostile aliens approaching with invasion intentions, Jake ordered. Sir, what about our orders to avoid contact with unknown species? Rick asked. Jake looked at the tactical display showing the 12 alien ships moving steadily toward human colonies where millions of people lived and worked. Rick, I think they made contact with us. Now we just have to make sure Earth Command knows what's coming. Amy's fingers flew over her console. Message sent, Captain. Earth Command should receive it in about 6 hours. Jake settled into his chair and watched the alien fleet approach. The Vorthak thought they were conquering primitive humans. They were about to learn that humans had been preparing for this day for a very long time. Admiral Kate Sullivan was reviewing supply reports when the emergency transmission arrived at Earth Command. The message from Captain Morrison changed everything. She immediately called for an emergency session of the Solar Defense Council. General Paul Griffin arrived first, his uniform crisp despite being woken at 3 in the morning. Fleet Commander Lisa Ward came next, followed by Intelligence Director Sam Mitchell. These 4 people had spent years preparing for exactly this situation. Gentlemen, lady, we have a problem, Admiral Sullivan began. She activated the main holographic display, showing the location of the alien fleet and their projected course. 12 hostile ships are approaching our outer colonies with stated intentions to invade and conquer human space. General Griffin studied the display with the eyes of a man who had spent his life planning for war. What do we know about their capabilities? According to Captain Morrison's scans, their ships are larger than our heavy cruisers and carry advanced energy weapons. They call themselves the Vorthak Empire and claim to have conquered 17 other star systems. Admiral Sullivan replied. Intelligence Director Mitchell leaned forward. I ran their name through our alien contact database. No previous records, but that doesn't surprise me. Most species we've encountered stay close to home. Fleet Commander Ward pointed at the tactical display. If they maintain current speed, and of course they'll reach New Denver Station in 16 hours. That's 12,000 civilians with minimal defenses. Admiral Sullivan nodded. Which is why we're implementing Protocol 7 immediately. The room went quiet. Protocol 7 was the plan they hoped never to use. It meant that diplomacy had failed, and humanity was going to war with an alien species. Dr. Alex Turner entered the briefing room carrying a data pad and looking like he had been awake for days. As head of the Terran Defense Research Division, Alex knew secrets that most people in the room had never heard of. Admiral, I've been monitoring the situation since the alert came in. The Vorthak are making a critical mistake, Dr. Turner said. What kind of mistake? General Griffin asked. Dr. Turner activated his datapad, and new information appeared on the main display. They're treating this like a standard conquest. Move in with superior force, demand surrender, occupy territory. It's worked for them before because they've been fighting species that think like they do. But humans don't think like other species, Fleet Commander Ward said with a slight smile. Exactly, Dr. Turner replied. While other species build bigger ships and better weapons, humans build better traps. Admiral Sullivan stood and walked to the display. Show them the Ghost Fleet status. Dr. Turner's fingers moved across his datapad. The display changed to show hundreds of small contacts scattered throughout the solar system. To most observers, they looked like asteroids, space debris, and communication satellites. The Ghost Fleet has been operational for 3 years, 450 automated defense platforms, each one designed to look like something harmless until activated. They're equipped with kinetic weapon systems specifically designed to penetrate energy shields. Intelligence Director Mitchell whistled softly. The Vorthak have no idea what they're flying into. That's the point, Admiral Sullivan said. Dr. Turner, what's the status of the Reaper Protocol? All civilian installations are equipped and ready. Mining ships, cargo haulers, research stations, even some of the larger passenger liners. Anyone who volunteered for the program has been training for this day. General Griffin looked impressed. How many ships are we talking about? Over 2,000 vessels of various sizes. The Vorthak will see what looks like civilian traffic, going about normal business. They won't realize they're looking at the largest defensive fleet in human history, Dr. Turner explained. Fleet Commander Ward brought up another display. Our actual military fleet is already moving into position. Captain Ellen Brooks is commanding a squadron of destroyers that will serve as visible bait. The Vorthak need to see something they expect to see. Admiral Sullivan returned to her chair. The plan is simple. We let them come to us. They'll see a small military force protecting Earth and assume they can easily overwhelm us. When they commit to their attack, we spring the trap. What about Captain Morrison and his crew? Intelligence Director Mitchell asked. They'll continue playing for time while staying out of the main battle. Morrison is a good officer, but the Defender isn't equipped for what's coming, Admiral Sullivan replied. Dr. Turner looked up from his data pad. Admiral, there's something else. The Vorthak are jamming all communications in their area. Captain Morrison won't be able to coordinate with us once the shooting starts. Then we'll have to trust his judgment. Morrison has good instincts and his crew is experienced, Fleet Commander Ward said. General Griffin stood and walked to the tactical display. What happens after we defeat their fleet? The Vorthak Empire won't just forget about 17 conquered systems. Admiral Sullivan smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. That's phase 2 of the plan. Once we've dealt with their invasion, Force, we're going to pay them a visit. The Vorthak need to understand that attacking humanity comes with consequences. Intelligence Director Mitchell pulled up files on his personal data pad. We've been tracking their expansion for months. Their home system is called Vorthak Prime, located about 40 light years from here. They have 3 major military installations and a population of roughly 2 billion. We're not going there to conquer them, Admiral Sullivan clarified. We're going there to deliver a message. The message is that humanity doesn't start wars, but we definitely finish them. Dr. Turner nodded approvingly. The psychological impact will be significant. They think they're dealing with primitives. When they realize that humans can strike back at their home system, it will change their entire perspective on our species. Fleet, Commander Ward checked her chronometer. Admiral, we have 14 hours before the Vorthak reach our outer colonies. I recommend we begin final preparations immediately. Agreed, Admiral Sullivan said. General Griffin, prepare all ground-based defenses. Ward, coordinate with the Ghost Fleet and position our visible forces. Mitchell, I want intelligence updates every hour. Turner, make sure all the civilian volunteers know what they're getting into. The meeting broke up as each officer headed to their respective commands. Admiral Sullivan remained in the briefing room, studying the tactical display. The Vorthak thought they were about to conquer another primitive species. Instead, they were about to discover why humans had never been conquered by anyone. Captain Ellen Brooks stood on the bridge of the UHS Liberty, watching the Vorthak fleet approach Earth. Her small squadron of 6 destroyers looked pathetic compared to the 12 massive alien warships, which was exactly what Admiral Sullivan wanted the enemy to see. Captain, the Vorthak are hailing us, reported Communications Officer Danny Park. Put them through, Ellen replied. She had volunteered for this mission knowing it would likely be her last. Making the aliens believe they faced only token resistance was crucial to the plan. Commander Zexthul appeared on the main screen, his metallic features showing what might have been amusement. Human Commander, you have 6 small ships against our 12 battlecruisers. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Ellen straightened her uniform and looked directly at the alien commander. This is Captain Ellen Brooks of the Earth Defense Force. You are ordered to leave human space immediately or face the consequences. Consequences. Zexthul made that laughing sound again. Your primitive weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your ships are toys compared to Vorthak technology. You will be destroyed, and then we will claim your planet." The transmission ended, and Ellen turned to her tactical officer. "Lieutenant Kim Walsh, are all ships ready?" "Yes, Captain. All destroyers are in position and ready to begin the dance." Ellen smiled grimly. The dance was their code name for the delaying action they were about to perform. Their job was to make the Vorthak commit fully to their attack while staying alive long enough for the real surprise to begin. "All ships, this is Liberty. Begin evasive maneuvers and return fire. Make it look good, but don't get yourselves killed." Ellen transmitted to her squadron. The Vorthak fleet opened fire with brilliant beams of energy that lit up space like deadly fireworks. Ellen's destroyers scattered, firing back with conventional missiles and energy weapons that seemed pitiful compared to the alien firepower. On Earth, Admiral Sullivan watched the battle unfold from the command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. "Dr. Turner, how long before the Vorthak are in optimal position?" Dr. Turner monitored dozens of displays showing the positions of both fleets. "Another 3 minutes, Admiral. They're moving exactly as predicted." The Vorthak ships pressed their attack, confident in their superiority. Commander Zexathul watched his forces systematically hunt down the human destroyers. 2 of the human ships were already trailing atmosphere and debris, though they continued fighting. "Humans fight bravely for primitives," Zexathul told his tactical officer. "It will not save them, but they die with honor." What the Vorthak commander could not see were the hundreds of Ghost Fleet platforms positioned throughout the area. Each platform looked like space debris or a small asteroid to alien sensors. The humans had spent years perfecting the camouflage. Technology. Station Chief Tony Clark watched the battle from his position aboard New Denver Mining Station. To the Vorthak, his facility looked like a standard industrial complex. They had no idea that every mining ship and cargo hauler in the area was actually part of the largest military deception in human history. All civilian vessels. This is new. Denver Control. Prepare for Reaper protocol activation on my signal, Tony transmitted on encrypted channels. Throughout the solar system, thousands of men and women who had volunteered for the program prepared to reveal the truth about human space. Teachers, miners, cargo pilots, and research scientists were about to become the most dangerous fleet ever assembled. Admiral Sullivan watched the tactical display as the Vorthak fleet moved into the center of the trap. "Dr. Turner, initiate Ghost. Fleet activation. Across hundreds of thousands of kilometers of space, the Ghost Fleet platforms came alive. What had appeared to be harmless debris suddenly revealed weapon systems and began targeting the alien ships. Advanced AI systems designed by programmer Dan Foster calculated firing solutions with inhuman precision. Commander Zexthul's victory. Celebration ended abruptly as his flagship shuddered under kinetic weapon impacts. What is happening? Where are these attacks coming from? His tactical officer stared at his displays in disbelief. "Commander, we are detecting hundreds of new contacts. They appear to be automated weapon platforms that were hidden throughout this region." "Impossible. Our sensors showed only debris." "And communication satellites," Zexthul snarled. The Ghost Fleet platforms fired in coordinated volleys, their kinetic projectiles designed specifically to penetrate energy-based defensive systems. The Vorthak shields, which had easily turned aside human energy weapons, offered little protection against solid metal traveling at significant fractions of light speed. Admiral Sullivan activated the next phase of the plan. "All stations, implement Reaper protocol now." Throughout human space, civilian vessels suddenly transformed. Mining ships revealed hidden missile launchers. Cargo haulers deployed weapon pods that had been disguised as shipping containers. Research stations activated defensive systems that turned them into fortress platforms. The Vorthak found themselves surrounded by what they had assumed was harmless civilian traffic. Commander Zexthul watched in horror as a simple transport ship fired a barrage of missiles that overwhelmed one of his cruisers. "This is not possible," he whispered. Intelligence reported that humans were a primitive species with limited military capability. Captain Ellen Brooks allowed herself a moment of satisfaction as she watched the Vorthak fleet realize their mistake. "All human vessels, this is Liberty. Welcome to the party. Let's show our guests some proper human hospitality." The battle became a systematic destruction of the Vorthak invasion force. Every alien ship found itself targeted by multiple human vessels and automated platforms. The careful formation that had looked so impressive when facing 6 destroyers became a liability when surrounded by thousands of hostile contacts. Dr. Turner monitored the engagement from Earth Command. "Admiral, the Vorthak are attempting to retreat. Should we let them go?" Admiral Sullivan's expression was cold as space itself. "Negative. They came here to conquer human space and enslave our people. No one leaves." The Ghost Fleet platforms had been positioned not just around Earth, but along every possible escape route from the solar system. As the Vorthak ships tried to flee, they found their path blocked by more automated defenses and human vessels that seemed to appear from nowhere. Captain Jake Morrison aboard the UHS Defender had been following the battle from the edge of the combat zone. When he saw the Vorthak attempting to escape, he brought his ship into the fight. "Amy, jam all alien communications. I don't want any of them sending word back to their empire about what happened here," Jake ordered. "Communications specialist." Amy Carter worked her equipment with practiced skill. "Jamming all frequencies, Captain. If they want to talk to anyone, they'll have to get past our interference." The last Vorthak ship was the command vessel carrying Zexthul. Surrounded by human forces and taking damage from multiple directions, the alien commander made one final attempt at communication. "Human fleet, this is Commander Zexthul. We demand safe passage from your system. The Vorthak Empire will negotiate for our release." Captain Brooks answered for the human fleet. "Commander, you came here uninvited with intentions to conquer our worlds and enslave our people. Negotiations ended when you opened fire on human vessels." The alien commander's ship shuddered under another barrage of kinetic projectiles. "You do not understand the consequences of destroying a Vorthak fleet. Our empire will send larger forces to avenge us." Admiral Sullivan took direct control of the communication channel. "Commander Zexthul, this is Admiral Kate Sullivan of Earth." "Command, let me explain something about humans. We don't start fights, but we always finish them. Your empire is welcome to send more fleets. We'll be ready." The Vorthak command ship's shields finally failed under the sustained bombardment. Secondary explosions rippled along its hull as human weapons found their targets. Commander Zexthul had just enough time to realize that his species had made a terrible mistake before his ship joined the growing debris field. Station Chief Tony Clark watched the last alien vessel explode from his position at New Denver. "Well, that's the end of that," he said to his crew. "Time to get back to mining." Throughout human space, the civilian vessels that had participated in the battle began returning to their normal activities. The greatest military deception in history was over, and it had worked perfectly. Captain Ellen Brooks surveyed the debris field that had once been the Vorthak invasion fleet. "All human vessels, this is Liberty. Mission accomplished. Stand down from combat alert and begin rescue operations for any human casualties." The battle had lasted less than 2 hours from start to finish. 12 Vorthak warships had been completely destroyed with no survivors. Human casualties were minimal, mostly damage to Captain Brooks's destroyer squadron that had served as bait. Admiral Sullivan stood in the command center, looking at the tactical display that showed the scattered remains of the alien fleet. "Dr. Turner, begin salvage operations on the Vorthak technology. I want to know everything about their weapons, shields, and propulsion systems." "Already on it, Admiral. Our analysis teams are heading out now," Dr. Turner replied. Intelligence Director Sam Mitchell approached with a data pad. "Admiral, we've recovered the alien navigation computers." Lieutenant Commander Steve Walsh stood on the bridge of the destroyer UHS Vengeance, watching the final moments of the Vorthak invasion fleet. His squadron had been tasked with hunting down any alien ships that tried to escape the trap, and they had been very successful. "Captain, we have one more contact trying to reach the jump point," reported Tactical Officer Nina Scott. Steve studied the display showing a damaged Vorthak cruiser limping toward the edge of the system. "Take us in. No one gets away to warn their friends." The Vengeance accelerated toward the fleeing alien ship, joined by 2 other human destroyers. The Vorthak vessel was trailing atmosphere and debris, its engines flickering as damaged systems struggled to maintain power. On Earth, Dr. Alex Turner monitored the salvage operations from his command center. Teams of specialists were already examining the wreckage of the alien fleet, gathering intelligence about Vorthak technology and capabilities. Admiral Sullivan, our preliminary analysis shows that the Vorthak were significantly more advanced than us in energy weapon technology and defensive shields. However, they had no experience with kinetic weapons or automated defense systems, Dr. Turner reported. Admiral Sullivan nodded as she reviewed the battle reports. Their mistake was assuming that all species develop technology the same way. Humans have always been better at adapting and improvising than building the biggest guns. Intelligence Director Sam Mitchell brought disturbing news from the interrogation of captured Vorthak data systems. "Admiral, we've learned more about their empire. They don't just conquer worlds. They systematically enslave entire populations and strip planets of all useful resources." "How many worlds are we talking about?" Admiral Sullivan asked. 17 confirmed conquests over the past century. Based on the data we've recovered, they've enslaved over 40 billion beings across multiple species, Mitchell replied. General Paul Griffin looked up from his tactical planning table. "Admiral, this changes everything. We're not just dealing with aggressive expansion. This is systematic genocide on a galactic scale." Admiral Sullivan walked to the main display showing the locations of conquered Vorthak territories. "Then our response needs to be proportional." "Dr. Turner, what's the status of Operation Doorstep?" Dr. Turner pulled up new files on his datapad. "We've identified the optimal strike force for visiting Vorthak Prime. Captain Morrison has volunteered to lead the mission, and we've selected 12 of our best ships with experienced crews." 12 ships against their entire home defense fleet? General Griffin asked. 12 ships carrying a very specific message, Admiral Sullivan corrected. "We're not going there to conquer them. We're going there to demonstrate that humanity can reach out and touch them whenever we choose." Captain Jake Morrison entered the briefing room, still wearing his combat uniform from the recent battle. "Admiral, the UHS Defender is ready for the mission. My crew has been briefed and we understand the objectives." "Good. Jake, this mission is about psychology as much as military demonstration. The Vorthak need to understand that attacking humanity has consequences that reach all the way back to their home system," Admiral Sullivan explained. Communications specialist Amy Carter had been working around the clock to decode Vorthak communications protocols. "Admiral, we've broken their encryption systems. We can now monitor their communications and send messages in their own language." Intelligence Director Mitchell activated the holographic display. "We've also identified their military command. Structure. The Vorthak Empire is controlled by a council of war leaders who make decisions based on strength and intimidation. They respect only superior force." Dr. Turner highlighted specific locations on the tactical map. Vorthak Prime has 3 major military installations and a central command complex. Our plan is to demonstrate that we can destroy any of these targets at will, then leave before their response fleets can engage us. Fleet Commander Lisa Ward reviewed the mission parameters. "Captain Morrison, your strike force will jump to the edge of their system, conduct the demonstration, and jump out immediately. Total time in Vorthak space should be less than 30 minutes. Jake studied the mission briefings on his data pad. "What kind of demonstration are we talking about, Admiral?" Admiral Sullivan smiled with the expression of someone who had been planning this moment for hours. You're going to destroy one of their orbital defense platforms using the same kinetic weapons that devastated their invasion fleet. Then you're going to broadcast a message explaining exactly what happened here and what will happen if they ever threaten human space again. The psychological impact should be significant, Dr. Turner added. The Vorthak believe their home system is invulnerable. When human ships appear in their space and destroy military targets at will, it will shatter their confidence. Captain Morrison nodded his understanding. When do we leave? In 6 hours. That gives us time to finish analyzing their technology and prepare the message we want you to deliver, Admiral Sullivan replied. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Walsh and his squadron had cornered the last fleeing Vorthak ship near the system's edge. The alien cruiser was barely functional, its crew probably desperate to escape and warn their empire about human capabilities. This is Lieutenant Commander Walsh of the UHS Vengeance. Vorthak vessel, you are ordered to surrender immediately, Steve transmitted. The alien ship's response was a weak energy beam that barely scratched the Vengeance's armor. Steve shook his head in disappointment. They just don't learn, he said to his crew. Weapons free, and this. The 3 human destroyers opened fire simultaneously, their kinetic weapons tearing through the damaged Vorthak cruiser like it was made of paper. The alien ship exploded in a brief flash of light, taking with it any chance of warning the Vorthak Empire about what had happened. Back on Earth, Admiral Sullivan addressed her senior staff for the final mission briefing. Gentlemen, lady, we've just won the first interstellar war in human history. But winning the battle is only half the job. Now we need to make sure it's also the last interstellar war. General Griffin looked at the tactical displays showing human forces throughout the solar system. The Vorthak made a fundamental error. They assumed that because we appeared peaceful, we were weak. They learned too late that humans have been preparing for this day since we first looked up at the stars. Dr. Turner activated the final mission parameters. Captain Morrison, your strike force will be carrying a new type of kinetic weapon specifically designed for this mission. It will allow you to destroy hardened military targets from extreme range while staying well clear of any response. Intelligence Director Mitchell handed Morrison a sealed data chip. Captain, this contains everything we know about Vorthak military, capabilities, and the specific message you're to deliver. The message is simple. Humanity tried to be peaceful neighbors, but the Vorthak chose to be invaders. Now they know the price. Admiral Sullivan stood as the briefing concluded. Captain Morrison, you and your crews have a chance to end this conflict permanently. Show the Vorthak that humanity doesn't start wars, but we always finish them. Jake took the data chip and saluted. Understood, Admiral. We'll deliver the message. As Captain Morrison left to prepare his strike force, Admiral Sullivan looked out at the debris field that had once been the Vorthak invasion fleet. The aliens had come to human space expecting easy conquest. Instead, they had found a species that was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UHS Defender as his strike force prepared to jump to Vorthak Prime. 11 other human ships were positioned around his vessel, each one carrying the same message that humanity was about to deliver to the alien empire. Navigator Lisa Stone checked her calculations one final time. Captain, jump coordinates are locked in. Vorthak Prime System, edge coordinates to keep us clear of their defense grid. Weapons Officer Rick Hayes monitored the new kinetic weapons that Dr. Turner's team had installed. Sir, the long-range strike packages are ready. We can hit any target in their system from our jump point. Communications Specialist Amy Carter tested the alien communication systems they had taken from the destroyed Vorthak fleet. Captain, I can broadcast on all their military frequencies. The entire Vorthak command structure will hear whatever message we send. Jake looked at his crew, knowing they were about to make history. All ships, this is Morrison. Execute jump. On my mark. Remember, we're not here to start a war. We're here to finish one. The 12 human ships disappeared from Earth space and materialized at the edge of the Vorthak home system. Immediately, their sensors began cataloging the alien defensive positions and military installations. Rick Hayes studied the tactical display with professional interest. "Captain, they have orbital defense platforms around their homeworld, plus a fleet of about 30 warships in system. Their technology looks similar to the ships we destroyed at Earth." "Good. That means our weapons will be just as effective here," Jake replied. He opened a channel to his strike force. "All ships, target the largest orbital platform. Prepare to fire on my command." On Vorthak Prime, Military Commander Thex Vor was reviewing reports from the Outer Territories when his communications officer brought alarming news. "Commander, we are detecting unknown ships at the system edge. Their configuration does not match any known Vorthak vessel," the officer reported. Thex Vor studied the sensor readings with growing concern. "How many ships?" 12 contacts, sir. They appear to be maintaining position and conducting active scans of our defenses." "Impossible. No enemy fleet has ever penetrated this far into Vorthak space. Send a squadron to investigate and destroy these intruders," Thex Vor ordered. Before the Vorthak squadron could launch, Amy Carter activated the alien communication system aboard the Defender. Her voice, translated into the Vorthak language, echoed across every military frequency in the system. "Attention, Vorthak Empire. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Human Systems Fleet. Your invasion force has been destroyed with no survivors. We are here to deliver a message about the consequences of threatening human space." Commander Thex Vor stared at his communications, panel in disbelief. "Humans? But Commander Zexthul was sent to conquer their primitive worlds. How are they here?" His question was answered when Jake gave the order to fire. "All ships, execute strike now." 12 kinetic projectiles launched simultaneously from the human fleet, crossing the vast distance to Vorthak Prime in minutes. The orbital defense platform that had protected the alien homeworld for centuries simply ceased to exist, torn apart by weapons traveling at enormous velocity. "This is impossible," Thex Vor whispered as he watched the destruction of what had been considered an invulnerable defense installation. Amy Carter continued the broadcast. "The orbital platform you just lost was destroyed by the same weapons that eliminated your invasion fleet. We could destroy your other platforms, your fleet or your cities. We choose not to because humans are not conquerors." Jake took control of the communication himself. "Vorthak Empire, you sent Commander Zexthul to enslave our people and strip our worlds. Your invasion fleet has been completely destroyed. Every ship, every crew member, every weapon is gone." The Vorthak response fleet was finally launching, but they were far too slow to catch the human ships at the system edge. Commander Thex Vor watched helplessly as the aliens who had somehow reached the heart of Vorthak space continued their message. "We know about the 17 worlds you have conquered and the billions of beings you have enslaved. We know about your expansion plans and your military capabilities. Most importantly, we know where you live," Jake continued. Dr. Turner had crafted the psychological aspects of this message carefully. The Vorthak respected strength above all else, and they needed to understand that humanity possessed overwhelming superiority despite appearing weaker. Your empire expanded by conquering species that fight like you do. Humans are different. We don't build the biggest ships or the most powerful weapons. We build better traps, better strategies, and better ways to reach our enemies no matter where they hide. Amy Carter transmitted the technical specifications of the weapons that had destroyed the Vorthak fleet. "We are sending you complete data on how your ships were defeated. Study it carefully. Share it with your war council. Understand that we held back during your invasion. What you experienced was humanity showing restraint." Commander Thex Vor reviewed the technical data with growing horror. The humans had not used their most advanced technology during the battle. The weapons that had so easily destroyed Vorthak ships were considered basic by human standards. Jake delivered the final part of the message. "Vorthak Empire, humanity tried to be peaceful neighbors. You chose to be invaders. Now you understand the price. Any future aggression against human space or our allies will result in the complete destruction of your military capability. Rick. Hayes monitored the approaching Vorthak response fleet. Captain, their ships will reach us in 20 minutes. Orders? We're done here, Jake replied. All ships, prepare to jump back to Earth. Our message has been delivered. Before leaving, Amy Carter transmitted one final piece of information. Vorthak Empire. We are leaving coordinates for a communication beacon on the edge of your system. If you wish to discuss peaceful contact with humanity, you may use this beacon. If you wish to continue your aggressive expansion, you now know the consequences. The 12 human ships vanished from Vorthak space as quickly as they had arrived, leaving behind a shattered orbital platform and a very clear message about human capabilities. Commander Thexvor stared at the empty space where the human fleet had been. Get me the High Council immediately, we have a serious problem. On the return journey to Earth, Jake Morrison reviewed the mission reports with satisfaction. Amy, send a message to Admiral Sullivan. Mission accomplished. Message delivered. No human casualties. Navigator Lisa Stone plotted their course home. Captain, that was either the best diplomatic mission in history or the start of something much bigger. Jake looked out at the stars, knowing that humanity had just announced its presence to the galaxy in a way that no one would forget. Lisa, I think it was both. The human strike force jumped back toward Earth, leaving the Vorthak Empire to contemplate a very different future than the one they had planned. The species they had intended to enslave had just demonstrated the ability to strike at the heart of their civilization with impunity. Admiral Sullivan would be pleased. The message had been delivered clearly and unmistakably. Humanity was no longer hiding among the stars, and any species considering aggression against human space now knew exactly what they would face. High Commander Thexvor stood before the Vorthak War Council in the great chamber beneath their capital city. The 12 most powerful military leaders of the Empire sat in judgment, their metallic faces showing no emotion as they listened to his report. You are telling us that a primitive species destroyed our entire invasion fleet and then appeared in our home system to demonstrate their superiority? Asked War Leader Kexathana, her voice filled with disbelief. Yes, High Commander. The humans used weapons and tactics we have never encountered. Their entire civilization appears to be designed for warfare, despite presenting a peaceful appearance, Thexvor replied. War Leader Dex Morin activated the holographic display showing the destroyed orbital platform. How is this possible? Our intelligence indicated that humans were barely capable of interstellar travel. Our intelligence was wrong, Thexvor said simply. The humans allowed us to see only what they wanted us to see. While we observed their civilian traffic and peaceful colonies, they were building the most sophisticated military deception in known history. The War Council studied the technical data that the humans had transmitted. The weapons specifications showed technology that was both simpler and more effective than anything the Vorthak had developed. Their approach to warfare is completely different from ours, War Leader Vexteron observed. We build larger ships with more powerful weapons. They build invisible traps and turn their entire society into a military asset. War Leader Kexthana examined the human message recordings. They claim to have detailed knowledge of our 17 conquered territories. How could a primitive species gather such intelligence? Thexvor had been wondering the same thing. Hi. Commander, I believe we have underestimated human capabilities by several orders of magnitude. Their intelligence gathering, their military technology, their strategic planning, all of it suggests a species that has been preparing for galactic warfare for decades. The War Council fell silent as they considered the implications. The Vorthak Empire had expanded for over a century without meeting significant resistance. Now they had encountered a species that had defeated them decisively and demonstrated the ability to strike at their homeworld at will. What are their demands? Asked War Leader Zexakorin. They have made no demands. Their message was clear. Cease all aggressive expansion or face the complete destruction of our military capability. They left a communication beacon for peaceful Contact but made no territorial claims, Thexivore replied. This news troubled the War Council more than demands would have. Species that conquered others always made demands for territory, resources, or tribute. The humans seemed interested only in stopping Vorthak expansion. War leader Dex Morin studied the tactical analysis of the human fleet. 12 ships destroyed, our entire invasion force, and then penetrated to our home system without taking a single casualty. If they can do this with 12 ships, what could they accomplish with their full fleet? According to their transmission, what we faced was a limited response using basic human technology. They claim to have held back during the engagement, Thexivore said. The War Council exchanged glances. If the humans had been showing restraint while completely destroying a Vorthak fleet, their full capabilities were beyond estimation. Meanwhile, word of the human victory was spreading through the galactic intelligence networks. Species that had been conquered by the Vorthak or threatened by their expansion were learning that the seemingly unstoppable empire had met its match. On the world of Kepler-7, the surviving Threnody resistance fighters received the news through their hidden communication networks. The Threnody had been fighting Vorthak occupation for 15 years, and their leader, Commander Yith Ara, could hardly believe the reports. "Are you certain of this information?" she asked her intelligence officer. "Yes, Commander. Multiple sources confirm that a human fleet completely destroyed the Vorthak invasion force sent to their space. The humans then struck at Vorthak Prime itself to demonstrate their capabilities." Commander Yith Ara looked at the tactical data. Her people had intercepted. "The humans use kinetic weapons against energy shields. Why did we never think of that approach?" "Because we were thinking like the Vorthak think. We assumed that more advanced technology meant better energy weapons and stronger shields. The humans approached the problem differently. On the trading world of Nexus Station, alien merchants and diplomats gathered in the central market to discuss the implications of human military capabilities. The station served as a neutral meeting place for dozens of species, and news traveled quickly through its corridors. Ambassador Crintel of the Altarian Federation studied the reports with professional interest. The humans have announced themselves to the galaxy in a way that no one can ignore. Their methods were precise, effective, and sent a clear message about their intentions. Trade Representative Mordak nodded in agreement. They demonstrated overwhelming military superiority but made no territorial demands. This suggests a species that fights defensively rather than for conquest, which makes them very different from the Vorthak, Ambassador Crintel observed. The question now is whether other aggressive species will take the hint or view this as a challenge. Back on Earth, Admiral Sullivan reviewed intelligence reports from across known space. Dr. Turner's analysis teams were monitoring alien communication networks and tracking the spread of information about human capabilities. "Admiral, the news is reaching every major civilization within 50 light years. The reaction is mixed but generally positive among species that have been threatened by Vorthak expansion," Dr. Turner reported. Intelligence Director Sam Mitchell brought additional information. "We're detecting increased diplomatic activity throughout the region. Several species are requesting formal contact with Earth through intermediary channels." "What about the Vorthak response?" Admiral Sullivan asked. "Their military communication traffic has increased dramatically. They're conducting emergency sessions of their War Council and reviewing their expansion plans. Most importantly, they've recalled all their fleets to defensive positions around their core territories," Mitchell replied. General Paul Griffin looked pleased with this development. "So our message was received and understood." "It appears so. The Vorthak are canceling planned invasions and withdrawing from extended positions. They're also sending diplomatic signals through neutral parties, testing whether humanity might be interested in formal negotiations," Mitchell continued. Admiral Sullivan considered this information carefully. "What's our assessment of their sincerity?" Dr. Turner pulled up psychological profiles of Vorthak leadership. Based on their cultural patterns, they respect strength above all else. Our demonstration convinced them that humans are significantly more powerful than they initially believed. They're likely to avoid further confrontation while they reassess the strategic situation. Fleet Commander Lisa Ward entered the briefing room with additional reports. Admiral, we're receiving contact requests from 17 different species. Most of them are former Vorthak conquest targets asking about the possibility of human assistance in liberation efforts. This development worried Admiral Sullivan. We need to be very careful here. We've just demonstrated that humanity can defeat the Vorthak Empire. If we start liberating conquered worlds, we'll be seen as the new galactic superpower. Is that necessarily a bad thing? General Griffin asked. It is if we're not ready for the responsibility, Admiral Sullivan replied. Right now, we've established that human space is defended and that we can strike back at anyone who threatens us. That's a defensive posture that most species can accept. Dr. Turner nodded in understanding. But if we start actively intervening in conflicts throughout the galaxy, we become the dominant military power whether we want to or not. Intelligence Director Mitchell brought up the strategic implications. Admiral, we may not have a choice. The Vorthak have enslaved over 40 billion beings across 17 worlds. Now that we've demonstrated the ability to defeat them, those enslaved populations are looking to us for hope. Admiral Sullivan walked to the main display showing the galactic political situation. Then we need to be very careful about how we proceed. Our next decisions will determine whether humanity becomes a respected member of the galactic community or the target of every ambitious species that sees us as a threat to their expansion plans. The victory over the Vorthak invasion had been complete, but it had also announced humanity's presence to the galaxy in a way that could not be undone. The question now was what humanity would do with the power and responsibility that came with their new reputation. Ambassador Helen Carter stood in the reception hall of Nexus Station, preparing for humanity's first official diplomatic meeting with a coalition of alien species. The past month had brought dozens of contact requests from civilizations across the galaxy, all seeking to understand the new power that had humbled the Vorthak Empire. Ambassador, the delegation from the Altarian Federation has arrived, reported her aide, Lieutenant Kevin Walsh. They're requesting a private meeting before the General Assembly. Helen adjusted her diplomatic uniform and checked the translation device that would allow her to communicate with species she had never met. Send them in, Lieutenant. Let's see what our new neighbors want to discuss. Ambassador Crintel entered the meeting room with 2 advisors, their blue-scaled forms moving with the careful grace of a species that had survived through diplomacy rather than warfare. The Altarian Federation represented 12 worlds that had maintained independence through careful neutrality and defensive alliances. Ambassador Carter, on behalf of the Altarian Federation, I extend greetings to humanity and congratulations on your victory over the Vorthak threat, Crintel said, through the translation system. Thank you, Ambassador. Earth is pleased to make contact with the Altarian Federation. We hope this meeting will be the beginning of peaceful relations between our peoples, Helen replied. Crintel gestured to his advisors, who activated a holographic display showing the current galactic political situation. Ambassador Carter, we must speak plainly. Your species has changed the balance of power in this region of space. The question facing all of us is what humanity intends to do with that power. Helen studied the display, which showed territories controlled by various species and the locations of recent conflicts. The Altarian Federation is concerned about human expansion? Not expansion, Ambassador. Intervention. We have received reports that several resistance groups in Vorthak-occupied territory are requesting human military assistance. If humanity begins liberating conquered worlds, it will force every species in the region to choose sides. This was exactly the concern that Admiral Sullivan had raised during their planning sessions. Helen had been briefed extensively on the delicate balance between helping oppressed peoples and becoming a galactic superpower by default. Ambassador Crintel, humanity's position is clear. We defend our own territory and our allies. We do not seek to conquer or control other species. However, we also will not ignore requests for help from those fighting for their freedom, Helen replied carefully. Meanwhile, on Earth, Captain Jake Morrison was meeting with Dr. Turner about a new type of mission. The success at Vorthak Prime had led to requests for similar demonstrations of human capability from other threatened species. Captain, the Scythenian Republic has asked for a show of support in their conflict with the hegemony of Korth. The hegemony has been expanding into Scythenian space using tactics similar to the Vorthak, Dr. Turner explained. Jake studied the mission briefing on his datapad. What kind of support are they requesting? A diplomatic visit with military escort. Essentially, they want human ships to appear in their system while they negotiate with the hegemony. The psychological impact should be enough to convince the hegemony to accept reasonable terms. And if the hegemony decides to test human resolve? Jake asked. Dr. Turner smiled grimly. Then they'll learn the same lesson the Vorthak learned. Admiral Sullivan has authorized the use of appropriate force if human vessels are threatened. Back at Nexus Station, Ambassador Carter was meeting with representatives from 3 species that had successfully resisted Vorthak expansion. The Crystalline, Confederacy, the Free Worlds Alliance, and the Independent Systems Coalition had formed an informal defensive pact after the human victory. Ambassador Carter, we proposed the creation of a formal mutual defense agreement, said Speaker Toxran of the Crystalline Confederacy. Our species have proven that cooperation can successfully resist aggressive expansion. Helen considered the proposal carefully. What would humanity's role be in such an alliance? Leadership, if you're willing to accept it, replied Representative Miratel of the Free Worlds Alliance. Your military capabilities and strategic thinking have proven superior to anything we've encountered. This was the moment that Admiral Sullivan had warned her about. Accepting leadership of a galactic alliance would make humanity the dominant power in the region, with all the responsibilities and risks that entailed. I appreciate the offer, but humanity prefers to be an equal partner rather than a leader. We believe that diverse perspectives and shared decision-making produce better results than centralized command, Helen replied. The alien representatives exchanged glances. Most species were accustomed to hierarchical power structures where the strongest member led by default. Perhaps we could establish a rotating leadership council, suggested Coordinator Vestan of the Independent Systems Coalition. Each member species would contribute according to their capabilities while maintaining equal voice in strategic decisions. Helen nodded approvingly. That sounds like something humanity could support. We would want to include provisions for peaceful conflict, resolution and protection of individual member rights. On the Vorthak world of Kepler-7, the news of potential human alliance building was creating hope among the resistance fighters. Commander Ythara of the Threnody Resistance had managed to establish contact with Earth through intermediary channels. The humans are forming a defensive alliance with several free species. This could be our chance to regain our freedom, she told her Council of War. But will they actually help us? Or are they just making political arrangements with established governments? Asked her tactical advisor. Commander Ythara had been studying human communications intercepts for weeks. Their message to the Vorthak mentioned the 17 conquered worlds specifically. They know about us and they've made it clear that Vorthak expansion must end. The resistance had been fighting for 15 years with limited success. The possibility of human support offered hope for the first time since the occupation began. Back on Earth, Admiral Sullivan was reviewing the diplomatic reports from Nexus Station with her senior staff. The formation of a defensive alliance was proceeding better than expected, but new challenges were emerging. Admiral, we're receiving intelligence reports about 3 other aggressive species that are watching our activities with concern, Intelligence Director Mitchell reported. The Dominion of Zerth, the Hive Collective, and the Machine Syndicate all have expansion plans that could conflict with human interests. General Griffin studied the tactical assessments. Are any of them planning immediate action? The dominion of Zerth is the most concerning. They've been expanding rapidly in the opposite direction from Vorthak space, but our alliance-building activities appear to have gotten their attention. They see us as a potential threat to their own expansion plans. Dr. Turner brought up long-range sensor data. We're detecting increased military activity in Zerth space. They're consolidating their fleets and conducting what appear to be invasion preparations. Admiral Sullivan looked at the strategic display showing the locations of various species and their sphere of influence. It seems that defeating the Vorthak was just the beginning. We've announced humanity's presence to the galaxy, and not everyone is pleased about it. Fleet Commander Ward entered the briefing room with new reports. Admiral, Captain Morrison's diplomatic mission to the Scythenian Republic was successful. The hegemony of Korth agreed to withdraw from disputed territories rather than test human resolve. Good news, but it reinforces the pattern we're seeing. Human military capability is becoming the deciding factor in conflicts throughout the region, Admiral Sullivan observed. Intelligence Director Mitchell nodded. Whether we want it or not, humanity is becoming the regional superpower. Other species are either seeking our protection or preparing to challenge us. Admiral Sullivan stood and walked to the large display showing human space and the surrounding territories. Then we need to be very clear about our intentions and capabilities. We don't seek to rule the galaxy, but we will defend our allies and our principles. The victory over the Vorthak had opened doors that could never be closed. Humanity was no longer an isolated species developing in peaceful obscurity. They were now a major player in galactic politics, with all the opportunities and dangers that such status brought. 1 year after the Vorthak invasion, Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the war room deep beneath Earth Command, looking at a galaxy that had changed dramatically. The holographic display showed the new political reality. Humanity at the center of a defensive alliance that now included 23 species across 47 worlds. Admiral, the liberation of Kepler-7 is complete, reported General Paul Griffin. Commander Yithara and her resistance fighters have successfully driven out the remaining Vorthak occupation forces with minimal human support. Dr. Alex Turner updated the tactical display to show the latest changes. That makes 12 former Vorthak worlds that have regained their independence with our assistance. The remaining 5 are requesting similar support. Intelligence Director Sam Mitchell brought disturbing news from the outer territories. Admiral, the Dominion of Zerth has declared the formation of what they call the Expansion Alliance. They've convinced 6 aggressive species to join them in challenging what they describe as human imperialism. Admiral Sullivan studied the new threat assessment. The Dominion of Zerth controlled 15 worlds and had military technology that rivaled human capabilities. With 6 allied species, they represented the most serious challenge humanity had faced since the Vorthak invasion. What are their specific grievances? Admiral Sullivan asked. They claim that human intervention in regional conflicts violates the principle of species sovereignty. They argue that our defensive alliance is actually a tool for expanding human influence, Mitchell replied. Fleet Commander Lisa Ward looked up from her strategic planning table. Admiral, they're not entirely wrong. Every species we've helped defend has joined our alliance. We've more than tripled our territory and influence in the past year. This was the dilemma that had kept Admiral Sullivan awake many nights. Humanity had entered galactic politics with good intentions, but their success in defending weaker species had inevitably led to increased power and responsibility. Captain Jake Morrison entered the briefing room carrying reports from his latest diplomatic mission. Admiral, the Zerth Alliance has issued an ultimatum. They demand that human forces withdraw from all territories beyond our original borders within 60 days, or they will take military action to enforce what they call natural expansion rights. 60 days, Admiral Sullivan repeated. What's the assessment of their military capability? Dr. Turner activated detailed analysis screens. The Dominion of Zerth has approximately 200 heavy warships plus support vessels from their 6 allies. Their technology emphasizes energy weapons and heavy armor, similar to the Vorthak but more advanced. Can we defeat them? General Griffin asked directly. Dr. Turner considered the question carefully. Yes, but not without significant casualties on both sides. The Zerth Alliance is much larger than the Vorthak fleet we faced, and they've studied our tactics extensively. Ambassador Helen Carter joined the meeting via secure communication from Nexus Station. Admiral, the diplomatic situation is becoming critical. Several neutral species are pressuring both sides to negotiate rather than fight. They fear that a war between humanity and the Zerth Alliance could destabilize the entire region. Admiral, Sullivan looked around the room at her senior staff. Options? We could withdraw from some of the outer territories to reduce tensions, suggested Fleet Commander Ward. Show good faith while maintaining our core alliance. That would abandon millions of beings who asked for our protection, General Griffin objected. Once we start retreating from commitments, every aggressive species in the galaxy will see it as weakness. Intelligence Director Mitchell presented another perspective. Admiral, we could offer to negotiate a formal treaty establishing sphere of influence boundaries. The Zerth Alliance gets to expand in their direction. We maintain our defensive alliance in ours. Dr. Turner shook his head. That just delays the inevitable conflict. Eventually, our expanding spheres of influence will collide, and we'll be right back where we started. Captain Morrison looked at the strategic display showing the positions of both fleets. What if we demonstrate our capabilities the same way we did with the Vorthak? Show the Zerth Alliance that attacking us would be too costly to consider. The difference is that the Zerth Alliance has been studying our methods for a year. They won't be surprised by hidden weapon platforms or civilian ships with military capability, Admiral Sullivan replied. Ambassador Carter's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, there's one more factor to consider. 3 of the species in our alliance have offered to contribute significant military forces if war breaks out. They see this as a test of whether the alliance will protect its members. Admiral Sullivan realized that humanity was facing the same choice that had confronted every major power in galactic history. They could compromise and potentially encourage future aggression, or they could fight to maintain the principles that had guided their expansion. Dr. Turner, what's the status of the new defensive technologies we've been developing? She asked. The Ghost Fleet Mark II is ready for deployment. We have over 800 automated platforms with improved stealth and firepower. The Reaper protocol has been upgraded to include every civilian vessel in Alliance space. Most significantly, we've completed the Aegis system. General Griffin looked interested. Remind me what Aegis does. Dr. Turner activated a classified display. Aegis is a network of automated defense stations positioned throughout Alliance territory. If activated, it creates an impenetrable barrier. That makes invasion impossible while allowing us to strike at targets throughout Zerth space. It's a doomsday weapon, Admiral Sullivan said quietly. It's a peace preservation system, Dr. Turner corrected. Once the Zerth Alliance understands that attacking us means the complete destruction of their military capability while leaving their territories defenseless, they'll reconsider their ultimatum. Intelligence Director Mitchell brought up psychological profiles of Zerth leadership. The Dominion of Zerth respects strength, but also values survival. If we demonstrate that war with humanity means their extinction as a spacefaring species, they'll likely choose negotiation. Captain Morrison looked thoughtful. We're talking about threatening an entire alliance with military annihilation to preserve peace. We're talking about ensuring that aggressive species understand the cost of challenging defensive alliances, General Griffin replied. The Vorthak learned that lesson. Now it's the Zerth Alliance's turn. Admiral Sullivan made the decision that would define humanity's role in the galaxy for generations to come. Activate the Aegis system. Send a message to the Zerth Alliance leadership explaining exactly what they're facing if they choose war over diplomacy. What kind of message? Ambassador Carter asked. Admiral Sullivan looked at the display showing the territories of both alliances. The same message we've been sending since the Vorthak invasion. Humanity doesn't start wars, but we always finish them. The choice is theirs. Dr. Turner began the activation sequence for the most sophisticated defense system ever created. Admiral, once Aegis is active, there's no going back. We'll be committed to maintaining galactic peace through superior firepower. Then we'd better make sure we use that firepower wisely, Admiral Sullivan replied. Send the message to the Zerth Alliance. Give them the technical specifications so they understand exactly what they're choosing between. Captain Morrison prepared to carry humanity's final diplomatic message to the Zerth Alliance. Admiral, what happens if they call our bluff? Admiral Sullivan looked at him with the expression of someone who had made peace with necessary decisions. Captain, we're not bluffing. If the Zerth Alliance chooses war, we'll give them the most educational defeat in galactic history. The message went out across space, carrying with it the weight of human determination and the promise of consequences for those who threatened peaceful species. Humanity had entered the galaxy as explorers and traders, but necessity had made them the guardians of a peace that they were prepared to enforce at any cost. The Vorthak had learned that humans were more dangerous than they appeared. Now the Zerth Alliance would learn that human resolve only grew stronger when their principles were challenged. The choice between war and peace rested with those who still believed that might alone made right. In the depths of space, automated, systems awakened and prepared to defend not just human territory, but the idea that species could live in peace without fearing conquest by their more aggressive neighbors. The price of that peace was the willingness to fight anyone who threatened it.